our beloved parishioners. I'm Ashley.
I'm Bailee.
And this is Praise Be to Pod. Okay, we had a really hard time starting, so that's why we're crazy.
We're in a silly, goofy mood.
Bailee, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Oh, good. What's on your heart?
Okay, so I'm going to try to explain what's on your heart, or my heart, but it's going to be a little bit hard to understand, so bear with me here.
Okay.
So I have like a good, strong sense of self, but occasionally I go through these stages, and this is how I've coined the term for these stages. It's stages where I want to be, quote, a Florida, Arizona girl. So this is what that means.
Okay.
So you know those girls who, like, when they go on vacation or when they go to a bachelorette party, they either go to Florida or Arizona.
Yes.
I want to be one of those girls so fucking bad, but I know I will never be a Florida, Arizona girl.
Like, you want to be an idiot? Or you want to be hot? Or you just want to, like, go to Florida?
I mean, yes. It's more just like, okay, so, like, they remind me kind of girls that I went to high school with. So let me paint the picture of a Florida, Arizona girl. Her name is Mackenzie.
Yeah.
Or Lindsay. Definitely an E sound at the end.
Yeah.
And she, like, grew up in a town that was kind of smaller, or if it was larger, it was like a suburb of Omaha. Or something like that. Fargo. Something like that.
Yeah.
And she's slightly behind on what would be considered, like, the trends of, like, today, but, like, she's on, like, touch for, like, her hometown, but she's probably still got some chunky highlights and does a side part, just like
thick eyeliner.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And she probably has a tattoo that says "Love Never Fails," or maybe like the anniversary of her grandmother's death, or the dates of her life, or something like that. And then she also probably hangs out at her, like, local Herbalife nutrition club. Do you know what those are?
No.
Herbalife is like this multi-level marketing scheme, but they do these, like, little pop-up shops in these small towns that have little, like, protein shake shacks, and so the girls can go and buy their protein shakes. The name of the shop is typically, like, Rejuvenate, or something like that. But that's what they, like, do for fun. Is they, like, I don't know, become a nurse, and then they get into, like, like a pyramid scheme of some kind. Yep. So they would do that, and then they typically, like, I'm trying to think of, like, other things. So they seem to be always, like, rehoming small animals on Facebook. But they always have bunnies that they're trying to resell, or be like, hey, my cat had, like, a ton of kittens because she got railed by an alley cat. Come get them. Like, they're always reselling small animals. And they, like...
Okay, but, like, what is inspiring you to want this?
Because
why do you want this?
It's a childhood wound where those girls were so cool growing up.
Okay.
And, like, now when they go to, like, a bachelorette party or something, or, like, I always see photos of them, like, on the lake with, like, a ton of, like, guys that look like Morgan Wallen, and there's, like, a ton of boats around, and they're wearing, like, an American flag bikini.
Yeah.
And, or if they go to Scottsdale, they're, like, they take a photo with the girls, and the Instagram caption is, like, Scottsdale couldn't handle us, or something like that.
Yeah.
And life just seems so simple for them.
Yes.
And I want to be them, but I always find myself, instead of going to Arizona or Florida, I always find myself doing stupid stuff like, I don't know, going to Salem, Massachusetts for Halloween and doing a seance in a cemetery with my friends, or going to a museum.
Yeah.
When it's like, what I really want to fucking do is sit on a beach in Florida and get railed by a guy who looks like Morgan Wallen. That's what I want to do. I want to question his political affiliations and feel a little bit of shame from that.
Okay.
But those girls were so cool growing up, and I never got to be one of them. And I always pretended like I was too intellectual for them, when deep down I wanted to be included with them so bad. And I still feel that hurt, and I'm feeling it right now because recently I just saw a photo of people on Gull Lake with a ton of boats.
Wow.
And I was just like, there was a guy that, like, I had grown up around who I had, like, matched with on, like, Hinge or something recently, and him and I were talking, and then he unfollowed me when he saw that I was, like, a liberal. And I was like, fuck, I just want to get on someone's boat so bad and sell some bunnies.
Okay. I lived in Florida and in Arizona.
I know you
like,
did.
I can really make this happen for you.
Thank you.
Like, I have people we could stay with.
I just need to get a really bad tan and some, like, shitty tattoos that have, like, that aren't, like, clever in any capacity. Anyway.
I've done that in Florida.
Thank you. So that's what's been on my heart, is that I want to be a fucking Florida, Arizona girl.
Okay, that's good.
Scottsdale or Fort Lauderdale, I feel like, are calling me.
Yes, I lived in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah. But anyway, Ashley, what has been on your heart?
Well, I just got back from Virginia.
Oh, I always wanted to go.
Richmond, to see my friend's super fat baby.
Ashley, they watch this.
Dude, this baby came out 11.2 pounds. She deserves to be celebrated as a woman.
I'm barely 11 pounds.
I know.
Right now.
So this baby, like, is only 8 weeks, but it's off the charts for height and weight. Like, my back hurts so bad from hanging out with that baby for 3 nights. Like, I had to call my chiropractors and be like, can you help me? I held a baby for 3 nights.
Yeah.
How do parents do it?
I think that they have, love in their heart or something.
Like, physically, how do they do it?
I mean, I think that it's hard.
So it was so fun. He's so cute. He's honestly the cutest baby I've ever seen.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Cutest baby I've ever seen.
More than my nephew?
Yes. You know, like, I'm partial.
No, that makes sense.
As you probably are, too.
That makes sense, I guess. It's just that I would die for my nephew, so the math isn't mathing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't have any siblings. That's the closest thing I can have is my friend's kids.
Yeah.
So I'm also Auntie Ashley.
We became aunts this year.
Yes.
That's so
7 days apart.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But another thing that's been on my heart besides that was I had to delete my favorite game from my phone because it was ruining my life.
Okay.
Because I was so addicted to it.
What was the game?
It was called Royal Match. You've probably seen the ad for it.
I doubt it.
No,
I actually
have.
don't think that.
You probably have. He's seen it. He's seen it. You've seen it.
Oh,
it's like,
have I seen it?
Yeah, if you're on the internet, it's like a king, and then he's like, "Oh, save the king," and then it's like the king's gonna get flooded, and then you have to like move pieces around. It's kind of like Candy Crush meets Tetris meets constant dopamine hits.
The only thing that
So
I get
addicting.
on my For You page is like reels of people scuba diving in Lake Superior and finding a ghost in a ship. It's just that over and over and over again.
Okay. We gotta move on. Okay, we're on to the next segment.
Trust and obey.
Trust and obey.
I'll start.
What do you have?
Okay,
for us
so I
today?
have 2 recommendations I would like to make.
Uh-huh.
One is my second favorite podcast. Oof.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, that was so close.
Obviously.
So my second favorite
recommend
podcast
ours.
is by a person named Matt Bernstein, and it's called A Bit Fruity, and it is so good.
I think I've heard of it.
It's literally so good. Basically, they like talk about kind of relevant social issues and the intersection between that and pop culture,
Uh-huh.
but the guests that they have on and the takes that they have are so nuanced and profound and are rooted in so much compassion
Mhm.
and empathy, and I feel like it has expanded my own mind and has helped me like be critical and also compassionate of
Mhm.
people at the same time, which I think is a really healthy combination to have if you're talking to somebody that you care about but maybe
Yeah.
you don't ideologically align with. I love that podcast. My second recommendation, I just finished a book called Ring Shout that I really liked. It was on a list of books you should read if you liked the movie Sinners. So I was like, I guess I'm going to start reading now. I guess I got to learn to read. But it's so good. It's like
Oh my God.
a historical fiction horror book about this gal who has a sword and she kills these monsters that are like bred from the hate of the Ku Klux Klan.
Okay, perfect.
And it's so cool. And then she's like able to like connect with like the people in her community through this like actual legit practice called ring shouts, which is like kind of like it's rooted in African spirituality. And it's kind of like dancing, but it's like these different movements and vocals where people like, I think, move clockwise in a circle. But it's not quite dancing, but it's similar. You can Google it or look on YouTube for it. It's really cool. But it's about how there was like a portal that could like open with it.
Oh.
And it was such a good read. And I did cry. It's deeply moving. It's very touching. And it's 180 pages. And I was like, how are they going to tell this story in 180 pages?
How many times did you read it?
One time. But I'm sure I will continue to read it because I'm not a one-hit wonder. Unfortunately, I like to consume the same media over and over again. So that's been my recommendations: Ring Shout and A Bit Fruity.
Okay.
What about you?
I don't have a lot of recommendations this week to trust and obey.
Okay.
I would highly recommend this year's cherry crop. Really into eating cherries.
Wait, like actual cherries?
Yeah.
Oh.
I would recommend the cherries are really good this summer. I had them in Virginia and I had them here. Both great.
Okay, I will say I have actually recently been thinking about how I need to lean more into seasonal foods.
Yeah.
Because they are better, and it's just also better for like the environment
and
and the world to not be like importing fruits and vegetables if you don't have to.
Yeah, cherry's really good right now and cheap at Aldi. Yeah.
Oh, I love Aldi. You know I fuck with Aldi.
I know you do.
Because I can't fuck with anywhere else. It's a little expensive out there right now.
I did see the most recent Superman in the theater, and it was good and really good if you like dogs, because there's like a bad dog in it, like a naughty dog. And he's really cute. It like really made
like
the movie
mischievous.
Yeah. Like poorly trained.
Oh, I love stories of the poorly
it really
trained
made
dog.
it.
Like jumps
he
on
made
people.
the movie. Yeah.
Cute.
Just wreaking havoc everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was my favorite part of the movie.
I love that.
Yeah.
I have heard it's very good.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, like, it's fine, but the dog makes it, I think.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, well, as you might remember, we are continuing the long conversation on mental health this week. There's just so much to talk about, and I'm sure we'll continue to talk about it, but this will be episode 2. And before we get started, we're just going to share a trigger warning again.
This episode includes conversations surrounding anxiety, depression, and religious trauma, which may be difficult for some listeners. Please take care of yourself and use discretion while listening. We are not therapists, psychologists, or medical professionals, just two people whose mental health and well-being were deeply impacted and shaped by religion and the culture around it. If you're looking for clinical insight or support, we'll include links to licensed professionals and trusted resources in the show notes and captions.
Welcome to part 2 of our episode on mental health. Last week, we unpacked some of the biblical counseling movement, explored the influence that certain pastors have had on the evangelical perspective on mental health, like Mark Driscoll, John MacArthur, people like that.
Those are the two main ones.
Yeah, mostly them, I guess. And basically, we got personal about our own experiences with mental health and how they were impacted by the church. And today we are continuing on with that conversation, but we recommend, if you haven't listened to that episode, to go listen to that first. Otherwise, this one might be a little confusing.
Yeah.
But yeah, today we're going to continue that conversation, like I said, but we'll be focused a little bit more on how, like, people, including ourselves, are impacted by a lot of this spiritual ideologies around mental health in the evangelical church, and how a lot of the teachings from the church on mental health have impacted our, everyday lives, how we interact in the world, and our mental health diagnoses.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and start with a common misconception in the evangelical church that has a lot of negative impact on a lot of people who participate and are involved in that culture. And it's the idea that our negative emotions, especially, are often labeled as like sinful or are demonized. So did you have that experience when you were in the evangelical church, would you say?
I'm trying to think, like, I don't feel like I had that told to me directly when I was young, but when I was older, I had a lot of people around me feel that way.
Yeah.
Because they were conditioned that way. So it almost like shamed me by proxy.
Right.
In a sense. And
like a herd mentality kind of thing.
Yeah. Or like, just, I think it really like shows itself in the way that men and women develop identities.
Okay.
Like I saw a lot of men just kind of push things down, which mainly just leads to a lot of anger.
Yeah.
Because when you just continue to push down any sadness or difficult emotion, it usually comes out as anger. It doesn't just go away.
Yeah.
And then with women, they just kind of became numb. Like, if I can't have any of these strong emotions I have, I can't have any emotion.
Right.
And so
a lot of shutdown.
Yeah. And so I saw some really unhealthy relationship dynamics in that sense. And I think I always just felt bad about myself being too bold or too blunt or too, like, not feminine enough in the biblical sense.
I got that a lot too.
Yeah, like I felt like an outcast.
Yeah.
In some ways, especially like younger college days. Like I would see the very nice, kind, sweet girls a lot more successful in their dating lives than me.
Same.
The like bold, brash, sassy one.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and a lot of like, I mean, this isn't even in just the church, but a lot of characteristics associated with masculinity are like being able to speak your mind or like having authority, which we know that there are so many women out there who embody those qualities effortlessly, sometimes even more than men, I would say. I think that women are oftentimes more successful being assertive, but it is often a characteristic associated with masculinity.
Yeah, I didn't feel like the perfect wife material by any means.
Oh, yeah. I know for a fact I'm not. Oops.
What about you?
Okay, so I would say that emotions were and also were not demonized, but they were very contextual. So, for instance, like there were I grew up in the charismatic movement, so there were very intense emotional outbursts like during praise and worship. People would weep, or if people were having like a moment of repentance or accountability, people would have very strong emotional responses to that, and that was definitely seen as positive. I would also say that like we had a lot of very emotional men in our congregation growing up who were like in touch with their emotions and would cry and would, you know, show care for one another. So there were like certain like expressions of emotions that were fine, and then there were some that were like very conjured, I think, to amplify the appearance of having a spiritual encounter with God, like if you're being touched by the Holy Spirit or on fire for God, probably phrases you've heard before.
Yeah,
people would have really strong emotional responses to those. That being said, it was less accepted to have a really strong emotional response to like a carnal situation. So if you were dealing with like frustration with someone or sadness about something that happened in a non-spiritual context, then that seemed to be really like pushed down, like you like lack self-control or something like that. So I would say like by and large, that was a common thing. And I was also taught like very fervently that our emotions can be very deceptive. Yes. Were you taught that too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can't trust your emotions. You have to trust logic or
like an external presence, like your
the
pastor
scripture.
Or something. Yeah. I think that there's a passage that says like the heart is deceitful above all else. And like I do understand that like we have to keep our emotions in check sometimes, and it's good to like not have like respond always to emotional outbursts. But I think that like one of the negative aspects of that is that people, particularly kids that would grow up in that environment, would really sever their connection with their like internal world and like their ability to discern in certain situations or understand their emotions. I felt like that was a common thing I saw because like emotions like were very demonized or were only accepted in certain contexts. So there was just like a lot of confusion over like what contexts were appropriate to express emotion in.
Yeah, I think too, when I think about like the time that we grew up in, like the 90s, early 2000s, like that was definitely a time where this was becoming stronger in general, just in American culture too.
Yeah.
So it was almost a double whammy. Like no emotions for Americans because Americans are unhinged already. And then like no emotions for Christians because you need to be thankful that God has you in this situation, or like you need to just trust God.
Yes.
Not have emotions.
Yes.
And I was gonna say, when you brought up that verse, the heart is deceitful, I don't really know in context of the culture in the original language, but I remember when I was a missionary, with other people from all around the world, and one of them was South African. And she was saying, for us, we don't talk about the heart being the center of your emotions. We talk about your stomach. And so like even emotions are different in different places, in different cultures. And so like I never really thought of it in that sense. And sometimes I think these scriptures are very biased in the way that like us as Americans talk about the heart versus like maybe it was different then. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just something I think about a lot. Yeah.
I didn't know that. And I would have to say I actually resonate more with emotions being in the stomach.
Yeah.
Because that's what people would say, like, trust your gut. And that also puts a lot more like legitimacy to your emotions, because like your gut is supposed to be your like internal compass and your intuition versus just like the, you know, the wild, like, you know, inclinations that you have in your heart or something like that.
Like whenever I have anxiety, I feel it in my stomach.
Oh, me
like
too.
That's where my anxiety holds. Like a lot of people, it's their chest, like they feel compressed in their chest, but mine's always in my stomach.
I feel grief in my heart area and like really clear sadness, but any complex emotion I feel in my stomach.
Yeah, it's weird. Somatic work, it's crazy.
I know. Highly recommend EMDR, baby. It's gonna set you free.
I also remember there being a big push for obedience over any sort of conversation or expression.
Yes.
So like children are rewarded for complying, not being curious. And I even remember like going through any therapy I've been in, most therapists will say, you feeling this, let's be curious about it.
Yeah.
Like that's a big step in like taking a step back and understanding like, why am I feeling this way?
Yeah.
Because once you start to be curious, instead of shaming yourself for having an emotion, you'll actually figure out why you feel that way.
Yeah.
It's like so much more helpful than just being like, no, don't feel like that.
Yeah.
So like when a kid would ask a question, it's seen as rebellious, like because I said so, or, you know, like when and it's kind of led to like a pendulum swing to this gentle parenting trend, which is like extreme. It's an extreme pendulum swing, but with all of our parents just being like, oh, you know, because I said so, and don't ask any questions. You're really taught to prioritize like these authority figures as like whatever they say is good and whatever they say is right. And it's a prime spot to convince someone to follow the religion that you're in because you can't ask any questions. And also to prime them for abuse. Yeah. Like kids are so easily abused when they're like, our parents are supposed to, our authority figures are any adult. Right. They're always right.
No, it's very true. I remember like having so many questions growing up and even as an adult, and a lot of like the attitude that I met with was, it wasn't like entirely just complete shutting down of my emotions, but it was like the way it was like handled was if I was trying to be like patronizing or contrarian intentionally, when I was like, actually I'm being very earnest. Like I'm not, like we all like have had the devil's advocate in class where you're like, oh my God, shut the fuck up, just listen. Like, but that was how I feel like I was all the time. And I'm like, no, I actually earnestly have this question because it is a huge barrier to my faith and I need to resolve this so I can actually take in this material.
You guys need to know.
Yeah, I just like literally need to know. But that was like a huge thing that I experienced as well.
It just really scares me that people in authority are constantly enforcing their thoughts on others, may it be children, may it be people under them, learning from them, whatever, when like they're just listening to whoever did that to them, who's listening to whoever did that to them. And that's what led us to like what happened with the end times episode. Yeah. Where it's like, where'd this idea of the rapture even come from? Some fucking guy in a commentary. Yes. You know, and like, is that where this mental health idea came from? You know, like that's why I'm so interested in why did we pass down this idea that emotions are bad, or that mental health is a sin issue. Yeah. It's from some guy in the 60s.
Literally. And if you read the Bible, like if you read the Psalms, David is the biggest diva.
Don't even get me started on David.
Oh, let's talk about David.
We just think that he's a great person to think about when he sucked so much.
Yeah, he was not a good guy.
We do not need to be naming people David these days.
No, he was like he was a war criminal.
He was a rapist.
Yeah.
He was a
highly
abductor, a murderer.
He murdered an innocent giant.
Oh, disgusting.
Yeah, no, I'm not a huge David fan if I'm being honest.
Same. He danced for God. I don't care.
And his clothes fell off.
Oh my God.
Perv.
Wasn't he the one who like saw a lady on a roof and was like, I want her. So she just killed his husband?
Yes, he sent
her husband?
Yes, he sent her husband to war. So war criminal. Yeah. Has him killed and then
abducts her and is like, you're mine now.
Yep.
And she's just like, okay.
Yeah. And then God's way of punishing David was by making their first child die in childbirth. So basically she just bore his punishment.
So then she had to have birth? Like,
yeah, no, it's a really unfortunate situation.
I just talked through a long story about birth with my friend and oh my God.
Yeah, no, it is like
punishment on its own.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so, David, not the picture of mental health.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay, but one thing I'm sure that you have felt this too, is I remember being a kid and like having like just really wrestling through different like frustrations or doubts I had with the faith and talking to different adults in my life. And when the adults would respond to me, or even just like hearing like a minister from the pulpit, the confidence of which they would talk about their opinions on something, I just assumed that they knew better, because there's no way in hell that I would talk that confidently about something if I didn't know it backwards and front. Which is why I had questions and why I was like, I don't know what's going on here. And then when I got older and I started like learning things, I realized that like they had not wrestled with these questions in the way that I had. Mm-hmm. And they actually were very confident in their opinions with little research and like curiosity.
Just like, oh, I'm a guy and I can say this, so I will.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then like you start interrogating them and then they say things that are like confusing because they're not well versed, and you assume like they always, this was
like, I'm not trying to trick you, I'm just confused. And then they're like, wait, why are you trying to trick me?
Literally. And I'm like, how can a 12-year-old trick you?
Yeah.
That should be a wake-up call. If I can run circles around you at 12 years old, that is not a reflection of me. I can tell you there isn't a single 12-year-old on the planet who can outwit me, except for what's his name, Kevin McAllister from Home Alone. He could fuck me up. He would make me fall through a trapdoor. That kid is so smart.
He like almost murdered people.
I know, he's wicked.
They deserved it, but
I love that little kid. He probably was also like 8, not 12. No, anyway, I just like didn't like the authority and confidence of which people would like say things. I'm just like, how are you this confident? So I just literally assumed, like, this is what they'd always say. They'd say, God's ways are higher than your ways. Yeah. And that would be the shiny bow that they would put on everything, where it's like, you're not meant to understand it. And like, that being said, now, like, I have space for like mysticism and what I cannot understand. But I would never just slap that on like a young person's question to be like, all right, there you go. Like, well, that like that kind of, and it just the confidence of which people would like say things. Like, I remember I one time was having an argument with someone from the International House of Prayer. And in my argument, I said to them, I was like, so you think that after like centuries of church history and like 2,000 years since the death of Christ, that you are the final revelation of the truth of Christianity right here? That doesn't like, you just don't have a doubt in your mind that maybe like there could be a couple things you still have to learn or unlearn. And the like arrogance of that perspective is mind-boggling to me. And like, how dare you also like put that on kids too? Like, I don't know, that kind of stuff just like really rubbed me the wrong way. Which also brings me to like the next thing we were going to talk about, which is spiritual bypassing, where like people will be having like intense mental health crises or events that happen in their life that bring upon so much grief and pain. And then they'll get these little like, God gives his greatest battles to his toughest soldiers. Or like, oh,
God doesn't give you anything you can't handle.
Yes. Or like, you know, everything to the glory of God. Like, he can like turn your beauty into, or your ashes into beauty, like that kind of a thing. And like, don't get me wrong, I really love reframe on a negative situation to help you see like how it's working for you and not against you. But so much of that just made people disregard really negative experiences. I will also say that is how oppressive structures and systems stay alive. Yeah. Is just encouraging people to find the silver lining of something instead of being like, no, we actually have to dismantle this terrible system. And like, no amount of reframing it is going to fix the fact that it's destroying people's lives. So yeah, spiritual bypassing, don't love it.
Yeah, and I just want to like explain that a little bit.
Yes, please.
Spiritual bypassing means like, let's say a good friend of yours dies in a car accident. If you are spiritual bypassing, instead of grieving it and being sad and being realistic about your feelings, you would say, well, I trust that God had a plan and this was their time.
Yes.
And that there is no processing of the emotions. And it's just like, you know, I don't feel sad. I know that she's in heaven.
Yes.
And like, I know that this was her time and that she had, you know, like, and those are nice things to think, and they're helpful. Like, believing in religion is helpful when someone dies. Yes. Like, that's been one of my hardest things leaving religion, is like, what happens next? I don't know. Totally. But And that is helpful, but it's not helpful to process your grief and emotions, to just like push it off.
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of have a hot take on something.
Okay.
And if you disagree with me, I would love to hear your perspective on this, because I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me.
Okay.
I don't love it when instead of having a funeral, people have a celebration of life thing. I have been to celebration of life ceremonies, and I can tell you that it is much easier to celebrate someone's life if you didn't live with them, if they're not your father, if they're not like...
You want a funeral.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just like, I went to a celebration of life service recently, and I was just really disappointed because it was a father who left kids behind. And the kids actually spoke at his funeral, and it was beautiful. Mm-hmm. I was so proud of them too. Mm-hmm. They were amazing. They did so much emotional labor for people that day that should have been doing that labor for them.
Yeah.
And I felt like there was a lot of pressure for them to be like, we know we're going to see our dad again one day. We know he's with Jesus and that he's like celebrating and cheering us on. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell people how to grieve, but I wanted to be like, baby girl, you know you can cry at your dad's funeral, right?
Yeah.
You know what this sucks. And that you shouldn't be 16 years old and losing your dad.
Yeah.
That is unjust. That is okay to be like, this is not okay.
Yeah.
This is not fair. And I just like, if somebody before they die has the request to have a celebration of life, or the immediate family wants to have it, you got to do what you got to do. Yeah. I just think that there's a lot of pressure to find joy in moments where like there's a time to be joyful and there's a time to grieve. And I think a funeral is literally textbook time to grieve.
Right.
Like, don't rush people.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a thing. That's a very common example of evangelical culture where it's like, you can't even grieve the dead.
Yeah.
You can't even grieve the dead. Yeah.
So I know that we already did an end times episode. We already did an end times episode. It's like a tongue twister. But there's a lot of these core beliefs that truly affected our mental health. And we want to kind of talk about them one by one. And I know for you, how the rapture and the end times really brought you a lot of anxiety. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
I do, actually. So it's really interesting. And I think I maybe mentioned this in our first mental health episode. But my mental health has improved immensely in the last few years, to the point where when we first decided to do an episode on mental health, I was like, I don't know if I have much to say anymore. Like, things are pretty like light and fluffy.
Yeah.
But God had bigger plans for me because not long after that, I had a mental health crisis.
Oh, damn.
Just primed to talk about it in this episode. Whatever. But I was thinking, I had some like anxieties and specific things that were occurring in my life in a seemingly unrelated event. And I made a connection to something that I had grown up with. And it is like the belief that God is a bait and switch God. And I feel like that is, I'll talk about that. Yeah. So I think that a lot of end times culture is like the anticipation that God is going to turn on you at any given moment. Because a lot of it is like, there's a lot of like anxiety over whether or not you're Christian enough to like make the cut in the end. And there's passages, I don't know if they're in Revelation, but they're apocalyptic in nature, where they talk, I think Jesus even talks about it, where he says like many will like come to God and God's going to say like, I never knew you, but they thought that they were Christians. And so there was like, we were told a lot that like, there's going to be a lot of people who think they're Christians and think they have a relationship with God. And then when they get to the judgment day, he's going to be like, suck my dick. And then he's going to throw them into the lake of fire. Verbatim. No, I'm kidding.
No,
I think that's implied. That's implied that he's going to say that. He's like, I don't know, you loser. Anyway, but I like lived with a lot of fear that like at any given moment, my family would be raptured and I would be left behind. And I would be one of the people that was like, I thought I was a Christian.
Yeah.
Because we were given all these rules where like, if you have these kinds of thoughts, if you have doubt, like all these things, like you're at risk of losing your salvation. And so like, I lived with this fear that like, maybe I wasn't actually right by God at any given time, and that I wouldn't know until it was too late.
Yeah.
And so I was like really afraid whenever I was comfortable. I was afraid that I was getting lured into a false sense of comfort, and then that God would like pull the switch out from underneath me.
And like, this is hard enough to have these anxious thoughts as an adult.
Yeah.
But to have them as a little kid.
Oh yeah. I felt like, and then also like, not to like keep bringing this up, but then like to add to it that my dad passed away, like seemingly it wasn't unexpected, but I was told he'd be healed. There was just a lot of bait and switch moments where I was like, I didn't realize I wasn't safe.
Yeah.
But I thought I was.
Yeah.
And so there was just like such a like in my bones fear of finding myself with false comfort.
Yeah.
And then having the rug pulled out from under me.
Yeah.
And having not had oil in my lamp.
Oh my God.
Yeah. When it was like
with
time.
the 10 virgins.
The 10 virgins.
Like
6
Tom.
the mark on Lee.
Oh my God.
Exactly. So yeah, that was like, I think a lot of my religious trauma stems from just like, what don't I know? Is there something like, I remember like being like asking like our like religious people or leaders in my life, like, what about the people that never hear about Jesus on like remote islands that like would never intersect with Christianity, or the people that lived before the time that Christianity was widespread? Like, what about them? And I was told like, yeah, it's not fair. Like, they're going to burn in hell, even though they've never heard of God.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm just like, that is just like so unfair. But unfortunately, that means that like lack of knowledge is punishable by death.
Yeah.
And so not knowing what you are guilty of is not an excuse. Like, what do they call that? Like, ignorance is not...
No. Yeah, I know what
something
you're
about the law.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
know
know.
What you're saying.
Phone a friend if I have any lawyers. Yeah. It's like basically like just because you...
Like, you can't say you didn't know the speed limit wasn't the speed limit when you were going over it.
It doesn't matter,
It's
yeah.
your fault for not knowing the law.
Exactly. So like that's kind of like how I had grown up.
Oof.
Additionally, I was also told like, and this is I think very exclusive to like the charismatic movement, but children are not treated with very much dignity, but they are held like deemed as prophetic. Like we saw that in Jesus Camp where like children are like the most like spiritually sensitive class of people, and so they're put a little bit on a pedestal for like being like the movers and shakers of the movement. And so I remember being put like on a major pedestal and being like asked to give like prophetic words or like to do certain things like as a kid, because it's like, oh, like childlike faith, like we're gonna use the kids to do these things. And like even like that doesn't specifically relate to the end times, but it's basically just like it relates to me like being a kid doesn't excuse you. Like there wasn't any mercy for children in the way that like I think the average adult would have a little extra mercy for a child not knowing things. That just like wasn't the case.
And that ideology kind of makes you feel like you can never take a minute to have a break.
No.
Like you can never rest, because that means you took 5 minutes where you weren't reading,
where
you weren't learning more things that you should have been doing to make sure that you're safe.
Yes, exactly.
It's so stressful.
It's so stressful. And like, I will also say this too, there is such an intense hypervigilance that you develop because you're also told that like a lot of the signs of the end times are going to look good. Yeah. Like they're going to say that like a common thing was like Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. Yeah. That was a common thing I heard. And that the Antichrist, when he comes, is going to have a lot of great ideas. He's going to be a peacemaker. People are going to be like really moved by him. And so it's going to be easy to be seduced by him politically. Yes. And so in my mind, like every time like there was a good idea, it was like, oh, but is it really good? Yeah. Like, is there like an ulterior motive?
Tricked?
Yes. Am I being tricked? So it's like, you can't even trust the shit that looks good, because that might be like lulling you into a false sense of security and deceiving you. Another thing I noticed too with end time stuff is this obsession for looking for signs. So like people believe that before the end times will happen, that there's going to be like signs of the times, like different things are going to indicate that it's coming. And so I got really obsessed with like looking for signs, like, or just like synchronicities or things that would like indicate something's happened. Yeah. And like an example of that would be like, so, okay, when 9/11 happened, I remember that there were a lot of stories that came out about people who were supposed to be on one of the flights, slept in. Yeah. Had to reschedule their flight last minute. People that worked at the World Trade Center that were sick that day. People who, you know, got caught in traffic and missed the tragedy by like a second, like that kind of stuff. All these things that I am so sure for those people felt like the hand of God intercepted tragedy in their life. And I am sure it felt like divine intervention and that they had responded appropriately to signs. But people miss flights every flight.
Right.
People get sick. Like, you don't, like, I'm sure every day leading up to the World Trade Center collapsing, there are people who didn't show up to work for various reasons. But the people who didn't show up to work that day have a very special story to tell.
Yeah.
And so I think that there was a lot of like over exaggerating of like, oh my God, this is the hand of God. Where it's just like, sometimes like serendipity just falls in your favor.
Yeah.
But there was this obsession with like constantly like obsessing over like little things. And if I'm being honest, like I see that in myself today, just like this obsession with like every little detail or like synchronicities, or like if I'm like driving and I have this idea, like I should go a different like route. And if I like don't do it, I'm like, but what if there's a car accident? And that was God warning me. Like it's just this constant flood of stuff that if I'm being honest, I still kind of deal with today.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that comes with like, it's not just end times, but I think it's like exasperated in end times. It's this obsession with like anticipating things before they happen.
Yeah. I remember I got in a car accident last summer and I was like, oh, if I had only not gone to Starbucks, like the worst place in the world to go to like get in a car accident. And my husband hates that I go to Starbucks. And I had to call him like, I told him like,
because of Gaza.
Yes.
Yeah.
In general, but yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I went to go to Starbucks, and he's like, you can't start thinking like that. Like, you'll drive yourself crazy. And I was like, oh, it's so easy. Just not think
That's
like
great
that.
advice on his part.
I know.
But
it's true.
Yeah.
Like, you just can't go, you can't let yourself go down that road.
And we're so susceptible to it. Yeah. I literally like had a conversation with my mom recently, and this happens all the time, where like I will be like dating someone, everything looks great, it goes south for whatever reason. I'll call my mom because I love her and she loves me, and like there's nothing like your mom when you really need her. And like one of the things she always says was like, okay, well, what were the red flags you saw? And I'd be like, I didn't see any red flags. And she'd be like, that's not possible. There's always signs. There's always indicators. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. He chewed too loud. Was that the sign that I missed? Like little things that like are only red flags in hindsight. Like I get it. If he was addicted to heroin, that's a red flag I ignored. If he was like abusive or like mean or like didn't like follow like that kind of stuff, like I get it. But a lot of it was just like, oh, he kind of said this thing. And I was like, oh, that's kind of odd. But like, if you're going to operate that way, you're never going to be with anyone.
No.
And so I've had to like really work to just be like, I cannot like prevent somebody from like turning or like lying. Like it's not my responsibility to be able to like decipher if I'm being deceived. But that is something that I think that the church and like people like my mother feel like you are entirely responsible for, is knowing when you're being deceived.
Well, I mean, I also did the opposite. So with my first marriage, my ex-husband and I both were very charismatic at the time, very into like little symbols, little signs, and like every step of the way, it was like God had put in both of us like crazy, significant coincidences. That was like, we obviously have to get married.
Yeah.
And at one point it was like, do we even like each other? Like, it doesn't matter because we have to get married.
Yeah.
Like we felt like we were arranged by God.
Yeah.
And it was things like, oh, we're talking and we might break up. And then one of us saw a dragonfly. And then a dragonfly means this when you Google it. And then, you know, it's like, oh, I met you. And then I went back to Asia. And then you found me. And it was just like constant over and over again, like crazy coincidences. And we felt like destined to be together.
Yeah.
And like, I don't really think we were either really into it.
Yeah.
And so it's like we ignored our emotions to follow the logic and like the spiritual lens of things. And that doesn't work.
No.
You can't just like will yourself into something to change your mental health status or to like change how you're feeling or fake yourself into being in love with somebody. Like, 'cause, you know, like it works both ways. And it's not that simple.
Yeah. And it's just also just like, it's going to make you like it's going to make you like experience spiritual psychosis at some point. You're
100%.
constantly going to be looking for like a sign of the time, symbols in the sky, things, instead of just being like, do you even like this guy?
Yeah, and that's,
are you attracted to him?
Yeah.
Do you enjoy having sex with this person? Like, those are actually better
Like, do you have
indicators
fun?
of, yes. Do you not want to vomit when you're in that
Do you
person's
want to hang
presence?
out with them?
That is so much better of a sign than did I see a dragonfly?
I know.
Yeah.
And we're both like, what were we doing?
I know. That is wild.
Yeah. So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had talked too about how, like, we've said this before, that like the end times to me is like what purity culture was for you.
Yeah.
So how would you say that like purity culture, because I know that you have talked about being deeply impacted by it. I'm sure I've been impacted by it too, but at this point I don't give a fuck. How do you think like purity culture impacted your mental health?
I think that was what everyone was so intensely obsessed with in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, it was every youth group talk, every camp talk, like anything with a teenager was about porn, sexuality, purity culture, sex, having a boyfriend or girlfriend, like it was always heterosexual situations. Like it was over and over and over and over again. And so I think in purity culture you're taught even a sexual thought is a sin.
Yes.
And so if a teen has a normal intrusive sexual thought, it is like demonized.
Yes.
So,
which is a disaster because like you're literally not thinking about anything else but sex when you're a teenager,
like,
because that's healthy and normal.
And so like you have to push it all down.
Yeah.
Never think about it. Never think about your body, how your body's feeling. Like if you're having any sort of sexuality in general, if you even like your body, don't think about your body. You don't have a body.
Yeah.
Like I remember reading this memoir. Oh my gosh, this isn't in my notes at all. I was like, just transported there.
I love it when we off-road.
Transported there. I read this memoir. It's called Unorthodox. They did a show on Netflix about it, but the show wasn't very good. About a woman who grew up in the Orthodox Jewish faith in New York, and she described how she didn't even know she had a vagina because she was so hyper sheltered from her sexuality.
Wow.
And then
How's
she
that
was
even possible?
And then she was like in an arranged marriage, and she was supposed to have sex, and like. She like completely froze, you know, like, and I by no means felt that crazy, but it almost made me feel normal reading her book. 'Cause I was like, I felt so disconnected from any sexuality. And like I've said before, I had a million boyfriends and like, yeah, I'd kiss my boyfriends, but like, that was it. I was like scared of anything else ever happening. I was terrified. And like, instead of just normalizing like, oh, this is just a thought I had and let it pass, instead you start crazily thinking about it. And then you obsess over it, and then you keep having the thought, and then you feel worse about it. And then you get in this like shame cycle that turns something normal and healthy into something really crazy and like a psychosis.
Yes.
And like I would go to bed replaying anything that I did with my boyfriend, like anything that I thought wrong, like just continuing to cycle through all those thoughts. And this becomes like a mental compulsion loop that you can't stop. Yeah. And I think this is very common in anyone who grew up in a high control religion or just like a high control environment in general. And this is the loop. Like you have an intrusive thought, you feel panic, then you pray obsessively over it or recite scripture or both.
Yeah. Like
then you feel brief relief. And then the thought comes back and it keeps happening. And it's just shame, prayer, scripture cycle, shame, like it's just over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And like, you feel like, you know, I'm told every Wednesday night to not have these thoughts. And then I have these thoughts until the next Wednesday night. And then I confess the sin. And like, it's just demonic. Like
it is demonic.
It's evil. Like it's so crazy.
It's almost like if you don't want teenagers to think about sex so much, maybe don't make every youth group about sex. It's kind of like saying, maybe don't think about a blue elephant. What are you thinking about right now? A blue fucking elephant
having sex.
Yes. Yes, literally. And it's like it's hard enough as a young kid to not think about sex constantly because like that's all you think about. I think about sex all the time right now. And so it's just like, and then like demonizing it, it's just like the perfect disaster for just creating like this OCD feedback loop. That is just so toxic.
So I've learned a lot over the past 10 years about these, like this mental health crisis kind of in a lot of people who are coming out of religion and a lot of people that are deconstructing. And there's this word, it's called scrupulosity. And this is a term It's a form of obsessive compulsive disorder characterized by excessive religious or moral doubt and guilt. So they have, like, people with this have these intrusive thoughts, unwanted thoughts about religious or moral issues, like I'm explaining, and then they have a ton of anxiety that they have these thoughts, and it's like, it's a form of OCD, because I think a lot of people think of OCD and they just think of people who are obsessed with being clean, and people who are crazy about like washing their hands, or like these rituals that are attributed to OCD.
Yeah, because they have
like,
external manifestations that are more obvious. Like,
yeah,
it's easier to like, oh, that person has OCD. Yeah.
So there's another form of OCD called pure form OCD that's about obsessive thinking instead. And so if you are having these kind of things, I would highly recommend you talk to a therapist and a psychiatrist. There's medication you can get on that would help it. I have been able to like deal with these issues by unlearning a lot of things I learned, and through like deconstructing, and that's been enough for me. But a lot of people, that's not enough, and like you might need medication, and that OCD might go into other parts of your life.
Yeah.
Like whatever profession you're in, it might go into that, you know, it continues on. And speaking of that, like I was talking to you earlier this week about how I felt like such a failure because I made a mistake at work. And I work in marketing and I do a lot of printing. And so anytime we make a mistake, it's very expensive because we basically market through direct mail.
And you do a lot of print, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's all thousands and thousands and thousands of, like, we print like over 10 million brochures a year. So it's really hard on me, and like way harder than it should be. Like I had all these systems in place of proofing, and like it wasn't even my mistake, but it's almost that same feeling of fear and overthinking and like, oh, I made a mistake and I can't like undo the loop.
Yes.
Like those grooves are deep in my brain for like when I did something wrong, it continues to go and go. It's almost that like religion in me still.
I could totally see that, because like your acts are literally tied to like life and death and eternity.
Yeah.
That is not an easy thing to undo.
Yeah.
Ashley.
Yeah.
It's even on things like, I literally had that same problem with like job stuff growing up too, where like I would beat myself up so much because like the consequences of my actions were like so grave. So I get that. It was really tough.
Okay, so Bailee, I know that you've talked about growing up in a Word of Faith church. And I don't know that I know you explained it before, but if you could explain it again, what does that mean?
Yeah. So a Word of Faith church is also like commonly associated with the prosperity gospel. So you've probably seen that a lot in like televangelists.
Yeah.
So like prosperity gospel is basically like you can like claim wealth into your life and like speak things into existence.
Yeah.
And like basically like pray and like you can give and then it will be returned to you tenfold kind of stuff.
Like if you believe in God enough, he'll make you rich.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. But it also, Word of Faith also can relate to like healing too, and like certain events in your life. And so like a lot of the, like you've probably maybe seen it today in like a lot of like manifestation beliefs, which is basically like your thought life creates your reality. So if you're thinking positive thoughts, speaking right, then right things are going to happen. If you're sick, don't say you're sick. Say that you are healed in Jesus' name. And basically you are speaking the reality that you want. Okay. So I grew up in a Word of Faith church.
Okay.
And I will say that Word of Faith theology is maybe the single-handed most damaging ideology I've ever experienced in my entire life. It has been the biggest pain point, the largest grievance, the thing that has like been a parasite in my brain even to today, and in like affected me in my formative years.
How? I don't see how that's so dark.
Yeah, no, because it's like, to some extent there's like an element of truth. Like I do believe that like having a positive outlook on something can create more of a positive reality. I think that being grateful is a prerequisite to joy. Like I think that gratitude is so important. And I also think that like our perspectives can really help us reshape a experience that was like, you know, perceivably negative initially. But the problem that can happen is that because there's a belief that your thoughts and how you speak and your confession creates your reality, then when something bad happens, you are to blame.
Oh.
So imagine this. We believed that if there was a group of people across the world experiencing genocide, that it was their thought life creating that. That is so wicked.
I remember this happening with Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
People had this idea.
Yes.
Like, oh, that's because that place is so wicked.
Yeah, so there's a lot of like
voodoo
and like hoodoo,
yeah, that's
and like
why,
Creole religion. Yeah,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is very racist to believe
100%,
that too. Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's a very common thing. Okay. Or like, to bring it back to my own personal story, when my dad, who was the pastor of our church, got cancer, he firmly believed that he was going to be healed. And so all of the energy in our church and in our family went to like speaking things into existence for his healing, to the fact that he would shut down any acknowledgement that he even had cancer. I remember one time people brought gifts to our house or brought like a meal train, and he denied it because it was like an acknowledgement that he was sick. And he would reinforce how important prayer and speaking as if he was already healed was going to be like the make or break. And I believed him because I was 7. Why wouldn't I believe him? So when he passed away, you can imagine that I was not prepared properly to say goodbye in a way that wasn't rooted in self-blame.
Because I felt like it was your fault.
Absolutely, because I was the child.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in my mind, it's certainly not the adults who are the ones dropping the ball here. It was my own faith. And I genuinely think that that has like planted roots in my life so severely. And I've more recently actually seen ways that it has manifested today, because I do think sometimes like when we have certain like grooves in our mind and thought patterns and mental loops, as you talked about earlier, even if we move away from an ideology, we tend to adopt a different ideology using those same, kind of like how some people say that a lot of times like fundamentalist Christians will become fundamentalist atheists afterwards. Like they just need something to believe in with all their heart. So if I'm being honest, during the pandemic, I was feeling pretty directionless and I was really afraid of what was to come. So I got really into like a lot of spirituality surrounding like astrology, manifestation, tarot, all those kinds of things. Manifestation basically being like, you know, I'm going to think positive thoughts and I'm going to have like an outlook and I'm going to be detached, and then all of those good things are going to come to me. And I think that those are not bad things to get involved with. I love astrology. I love tarot. I think manifestation is fine too. But I got so into it that I realized today that I have like basically just transferred one form of word of faith to another. And I recently had a situation in my life where I had something really lovely that was going on in my life. And I had a lot of positive thoughts about it. It was seeming like I was having a breakthrough in a certain area of my life that I hadn't had in a really long time. It felt like my manifestations or my prayers were finally coming true. Everything looked great, and the rug was pulled out from underneath me. And the like trauma response in my body was so intense and grave. And I couldn't understand why, because the situation wasn't great, but it felt like death in my body. And that's because my first experience of that was death. And I think that like there was so much guilt where I was just like, was I not thinking correctly? Like, was I not properly manifesting? Was there a part of my brain that doubted that didn't like, I wasn't worthy of this? Like, it was this constant spiral of like, what did I do wrong? What outlook did I have? How did I push away this good thing in my life? Like, what about me is not aligned with blessing and prosperity? And I caught myself where all of a sudden I was like, I'm doing the same thing I did when my dad died. Where I'm blaming myself for a like unavoidable thing. To do with you, and it really just like woke me up, where I started just like thinking about my life, and I'm like, oh my God, my life is a constant word of faith loop. It's just like training my mind to be like, I got to think positively about this. I got to do this. I got to do that. I don't get what I want, and I think, what did I do wrong? And like, obviously accountability and knowing what you did wrong is a very important part of growth. But one of the flip sides of like not being accountable to anything and not taking responsible for anything is blaming yourself for everything. And it's a slippery slope, because like some things are just simply not your fault, and you have to accept that like, man, life is just kind of shitty sometimes. And there's nothing you can really do about it. And like, maybe there are certain things like lessons to be learned in like each situation, but sometimes things just suck. I don't think that people experiencing genocide are having those things happen to them right now because they have lessons to learn. Because if that was the case, why am I not learning those? Why am I not learning those lessons? If everyone is supposed to learn that lesson, why am I not learning it? Like, some things are just egregious.
Yeah.
And I think it also kind of like takes the pressure off of like corrupt systems that we have in place where it's like, no, people aren't manifesting oppression into their life. Systems are oppressing people against their will. So anyway, long tangent, but I think that word of faith theology is so detrimental, and I think it's rearing its ugly head in a lot of manifestation culture today too.
Yeah, I can see that in both of us.
Yeah.
A lot.
You have that too?
We're both really hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
And I feel like it comes a little bit out of this like religion side of us.
Absolutely, yeah.
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 Like, oh, I failed. I didn't meet the mark.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had like a job that I applied to a long time ago that I had like 3 interviews in. I wanted it so bad. And I didn't ultimately get the job. And I remember thinking like, did I want it too bad? Is that what it was?
How dare you?
Was I too attached to this prospect of having this job? And I'm like, oh, sue me. I wanted a job that made it a little bit easier for me to pay my rent. Yeah, I was attached to the idea of financial liberation. Correct. Like, you caught me. But it is a spiral I get in a lot where I'm just like, I like constantly think like, how did my outlook on something or how did I speak about a situation completely like alter the situation? And like, it's just something that like, I honestly right now, if I have to unlearn anything, it's just like taking it easy on myself and like letting go of that. Yeah. 'Cause it's painful indeed.
Yeah. I think we definitely have more to cover, and I think it will come out in future episodes, but I want to try to wrap up a little bit. Like, what would you say to other people that are feeling this way now? Like we're describing, you know, like obsessive thinking or just being so hard on themselves. Like, what should we recommend to them?
Yeah. Well, I think that somatic exercises or like therapy that's in like EMDR. I would even say like I've heard people speak really highly of ketamine therapy. Yeah. Things that like I think talk therapy is fine. But if you're already somebody who gets into like mental loops, I feel like talk therapy could kind of like honestly just perpetuate that, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm not a therapist, so I don't want to like make that blanket diagnosis across the board. But honestly, like,
I think if you've never been in therapy, talk therapy can help start a foundation for the other therapies to work better.
I agree. Because I will be honest, like, I didn't know about this. Like, what was the name of the OCD that you were talking about?
Scrupulosity.
You had brought that up to me. And I remember thinking like, oh, like, I don't really believe in like self-diagnosing, but I was like, I could see myself having that. Most actually.
Christians do, yeah.
I didn't realize it because it was a thought process, but all of a sudden I was like, actually, I can't think of any time of day where I'm not thinking about how my thoughts are creating my reality, which is so obsessive.
Yes.
And so like, I think I want to like tap back into therapy to see if I can get an official diagnosis for it. So like, obviously like talk therapy would probably be how a lot of that would come about. But I would say like body work for that kind of stuff is like going to be a really big part of it. If I am being honest, I might be too deep in it right now to give any like hindsight perspective.
And I mean, that is also helpful. I feel like we're on the same level.
Yeah.
With anybody feeling this way. Like, I don't feel like this will ever be gone from my life. But I do think we will have on our website a list of resources. So therapists that I recommend that I've worked with for all of these things, EMDR, somatic work. I've asked them if we could reference them and they said that we could. So they will be on our website, their information. And then if you can't afford therapy or that's not an option for you right now, or you're just not ready, like there's so many books, so many therapists that specialize in religious trauma that have podcasts, like free resources, YouTube videos. Like there's lots of EMDR stuff you can do on your own. Like there's so many things you can start with if this is too scary to talk to someone. And you can read books, like whatever works for you best. But I would say we would highly recommend therapy, and then being open to medication. Like that is really scary, but sometimes therapy can't even help you until you're properly medicated. So and I know that's a hard thing to swallow as well. What do you wish you would have been able to tell your younger self?
That it's not your fault your dad died.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it's just like you're a fucking kid, and it's like the weight of the world isn't on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And the adults in your life should have not. Like, I have a lot of like compassion, and I know that people like meant well, and they wanted to need to be like a self-accountable adult when I grew up. I'm so
Went too
happy
far.
because I don't want
Yeah.
I don't want to be a spoiled brat. I don't want to be someone who blames everyone from everything that happened in my life, but I also don't want to blame myself for everything.
Yeah.
So I would just be like, you're 5, go play in the yard.
Yeah.
I just like, go play with your toys.
Yeah.
I would just say, go play with your fucking toys. What about you?
I think for me, I would tell myself to try to go to therapy before it's an emergency.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because emergency therapy was the only way that got me there. But I wish that I could have had the courage to go earlier.
Yeah.
And then I think understanding that if you truly believe in the Christian faith that I used to believe in,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to understand God doesn't need you.
Mm-hmm.
He's much bigger than you.
Yeah.
And I felt like if I don't do this, people will burn in hell.
Yeah.
And that pressure led me to do a lot of things that I wish I didn't do.
Yeah.
And so I think just understanding, like, if this is something you love and you want to do and you're doing it for God, that's great. But he doesn't need you.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have listened to my gut more. I wish I'd have been able to trust myself more.
Because it's your biggest ally and
Yeah.
your biggest advocate. And you'll find in hindsight that it intercepted a lot of events in your life to protect you. And like maybe it was deemed as like your flesh talking or whatever Christianese is saying to like dismiss your gut. But like it's got you.
Yeah, so there's so much more to say. We've already done 2 episodes, so we're going to put more information up on our website, praisebetopod.com/mental health. We'll put up a page there.
Yes.
And blessed are the listeners, for they shall find healing with a licensed therapist, not in a church basement with a 22-year-old pastor and his smoking hot wife. Find us on praisebetopod.com on the web and praisebetopod on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Threads a little bit. I repost a lot of stuff on there. I think
Amazing.
that's it.
Yeah.
It is finished.
It is finished.